So a really fascinating part of our study as well is called charting new highs. Can you take us through what that's all about?
In this section of the research, we were looking at different forms of drugs and whether or not Americans believe they should be legal for either medical use or for recreational use. And the first one that we looked at was marijuana. And what was very interesting here is that 71% of Americans, the clear majority there, believe that marijuana should be legal for medical use. And this was consistent also by political ideology, with 83% of liberals believing it should be legal for medical use and 61% of conservatives as well.
Which is fascinating. It's no longer being castigated as, the drug that's going to suddenly be the gateway to a terrible world. It's something that's actually good for society.
Certainly, I think Americans might see this from a medical sense, the idea of using it medically. I think if we look at it on a recreational sense, for recreational use, those level of agreement that it should be legal drops to 50%. So it's much more on the fence there recreationally. But I think the majority of Americans, from what we're seeing in our data, certainly agree, at least medically, that marijuana should be legal.
If we look beyond marijuana and we look at psilocybin and the legality around that, what are we seeing?
One of the other things we looked at then as one of the drugs was psychedelic mushrooms, or psilocybin. And we see this as potentially being one of the emerging frontiers for drug legalization behind marijuana. And once again, similarly, when we asked them about medical use and then recreational use, and within medical use, almost a third of Americans believe that psilocybin should be legal for medical use. And that is much higher amongst younger demographics. So 16 to 29-year-olds, 39% believe it should be legal. And similarly as well, amongst the 30 to 44-year-olds, they're actually a squidge higher, up at 40% believing that it should be legal.
Yeah, and that slightly older demographic is the demographic that sort of came out of the 80s and started getting to party culture as well. And suddenly something that might have been more social is actually being seen as something that's good for medicinal usage.
What do you see in terms of some of the medical stuff occurring with it?
Yeah, so it's really interesting. People are actually using it to treat depression, not only in terms of epic doses under therapeutic sort of scientifically controlled scenarios with counselors and therapists, psychotherapists, but we're actually seeing people that are microdosing it. So instead of taking the pharmaceuticals that they would normally take, they're microdosing these psilocybin capsules. And on an ongoing basis, they're finding that it's actually having a positive effect on their mood, but also on their level of depression that they're feeling. So that's the future of life in America. So where can we find more information?
If people are interested in looking at the data or some of these findings in more detail, they can go to intentions.co.
And do come across to nikolasbadminton.com, where I talk about this and many other things about how life is changing as a whole.